Today, from Davenport, Iowa, where old-time gambling ship roamed the beautiful banks of the mighty Mississippi, we bring you a high horsepower version of roulette. It's the top mud racers in the world trying their hand with Lady Luck. Coming up next, we'll see who's dealt the winning hand in this dirty game. This is Trucks and Tractor Power, featuring the all-stars of the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Quad Cities Nationals. Welcome to Trucks and Tractor Power on the Nashville Network. Today we bring you the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Quad Cities Nationals from the Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds in Davenport, Iowa. Hey guys, I'm over here in line to get some ice cream before the mud racing competition begins. Now I'd buy some for Army, but he only eats cheeseburgers. And speaking of food, these guys have a sweet tooth for horsepower, and they get it a couple of ways, with supercharging and nitrous oxide. And here with more on that is the old taste tester himself, Army Armstrong. Hey Army, if I have a chance, I'll get you a cheeseburger on the way over.
Well, Gary, make sure my cheeseburger's plain. For all you guys standing in the Gary Lee line to get ice cream right now, keep an eye on him, man. He may try to talk you out of a nickel or dime so he can buy his own ice cream. Speaking of nickel and dime, these guys are always nickel and diming each other, trying to figure out how to get the most horsepower out of their vehicles. And there's kind of been two train of thoughts on that. Right now, we're going to talk about those two trains of thoughts. One of them is a nitrous train of thought. The other one is a supercharger or blown motor. The supercharger or blown motor, right here to my right, has kind of a proven concept behind it. You have a supercharger here, basically nothing more than a way to force more air into the engine. As you well know, it takes three things to make horsepower: fuel, which comes from the fuel injector, air, which will come from the supercharger, and ignition, which takes place down in the motor. Now, this is a tried and true way. All the racers have used it in drag racing and been very, very successful with it. But in the sport of mud racing, a few years ago, technology came out, and the guys thought they may have found a new trick, a new handle, if you will. It's called nitrous oxide, laughing gas. And the way that works is very simple. The fuel still goes into the engine, but the nitrous, which goes through these lines right here, puts the oxygen in a condensed form. So the fuel mixes with the oxygen and gives you an instant horsepower. And that's what's proved to be a little bit of a problem, because the horsepower you get from this engine is a different kind of horsepower than you get from a blown motor. The guys that have tried the nitrous are finding out that it's an instant horsepower. It'll just grab you and throw you to the other end. You don't really have any control over it. So what they're finding out is they're going back to where they came from. A lot of the drivers are going back to the blower motors or the supercharged motors because that horsepower is more controllable. Back to you, Gary.
Army, thanks for that explanation, but see if I ever take up a collection to buy you anything at the concession stand. Well, as we take a look at the track, look at the collection of ruts. Because earlier in the day, they ran the paddle tire class, and that tears up the track just a bit. These will be the cut tires in the Class 5 Open Unlimited. 180 feet of mud, a single pass. The best time wins it here in Davenport. You're looking at Dave Ryan, driver of Intrepid, and before the start of today's competition, Army was over at his trailer where we discovered Dave drives one of the more sophisticated mud racing vehicles.
Well, believe it or not, Gary, what you're looking at is a computer printout that came off one of the mud racers. No, it's not your home mortgage. You still got a few payments to make on that. But Dave Ryan out of Florida came up, and he's gone high-tech in the sport of mud racing. Dave, real quick, we just kind of bumped in you back here reading the printout. Why are you using a computer?
Well, normally after every run, we don't usually know what happens with the motor other than reading the plugs or the bearings. And now with the computer, with some help from Dario Donovan from Cygnus Computers, we can tell every tenth of a second the fuel pressure, the blower pressure, the gear ratio, the clutch slippage, each cylinder temperature on all 8 cylinders. And in just one run, we can detune the motor or tune the motor up. But it really tells us everything we want to know, and it helps us a great deal, and we're pretty sure it's going to speed things up next year.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. And, Gary, you know, a lot of people might think that the sport of mud racing is redneck. It's high-tech. Back to you, Gary.
And there's a look now at that high-tech 23 altered T Intrepid. Dave Ryan with a good look at that inverted air scoop.
Well, you know, that's interesting. He runs a supercharged engine. You just pointed out the inverted scoop. Mike Yosha, on the other hand, in the other lane, will run a nitrous oxide assisted engine. The crew chief goes out, turns the computer on. You can see him walking around. They get ready to go up. But you got to remember, that air scoop turnaround backwards will really not affect the vehicle because these runs are about 3 seconds long.
They hope the run is 3 seconds long.
You can hold your breath that long, I guess, to make an engine
I think
run.
I could. Once again, Intrepid against Hyperactive.
Nitrous oxide with Hyperactive. Supercharged engine with Intrepid, Gary. They're lining up side by side.
And it's all the supercharged Intrepid. A good ride. Oh,
Whoa,
problem over there.
Boy, the nitrous, we told you earlier about how nitrous gives you instant horsepower. Well, with the short wheelbase and the instant horsepower, he was just along for the ride. He's lucky he didn't tag that concrete wall.
Yeah, Yoshi got in trouble in Hyperactive. You can see him hit the nitrous right here. He gets out of shape, almost collects the concrete wall, slams the timing light.
Other than that, though, straight as an arrow.
Yeah. And so he is disqualified. And there is even a better look at Dave Bryan in Intrepid, the supercharged 23 Alter T with the Keith Black Hemi. And let's take a look at his run one more time.
We told you about the two types of horsepower, and the supercharged horsepower in the near lane is just more controllable.
And that run for Dave comes in at a 3:17. So right now he'll be on top of the leaderboard, and he's standing by with Army.
Dave, we just get the word a 3:17. How does that make you and your crew chief feel?
Not too good. It didn't go that fast, but we're working on it with our new crew chief, Kenny Thompson here. We're getting the bugs worked out of it. We'll just get it hooked up, and it'll do a little bit better. We got plenty of power, just can't put it to the ground.
Well, he's the standard bearer right now as we take a look at Fred Wilhite, the driver of the Money Pit. He's coming up when we return on Trucks and Tractor Power. Welcome back to Davenport, Iowa, where Ford Trucks present the Penda Four-Wheel and Off-Road Jamboree Quad Cities Nationals, a part of the B.F. Goodrich Performance Series. And there's a look at Bob Glidden's Pro Stock Dragster, part of the Ford Motorsports display. And now it's time to go back to the pit. And there's a look at the Money Pit, the 48 Fiat with Fred Wilhite.
Well, those of you that follow motorsport know the 48 Fiat for years dominated the sport of drag racing. However, Fast Freddy brought this one over to go mud racing. Now, earlier in the day, he ran in the paddle tire class and took, well, you just take a look at yourself. It was a bouncy ride.
Yeah, he was all over that lane up against Intrepid with Dave Ryan. Ryan had a smooth pass, but Freddie was all over that shutdown area.
I think at the end of the day, it was timing light 0, Freddie won.
Out of Columbus, Indiana, there is Tony AULT in the Little Miss Dangerous 1978 CJ5 fiberglass Jeep.
Both of these vehicles are fiberglass replicas. We talked about the 48 Fiat, you talked about the late model Jeep. They're going against the clock. They let the pit go out. Not the run he was looking for.
Problem for Fred right there just before he got the timing light. A problem for both of these drivers. 4:15 for Fred and a disqualification for Tony AULT. Let's take another look. On the right lane, Fred gets off to a good start. Tony AULT will actually get out of his lane right here. He's disqualified. But near the timing light, Fred gets in trouble again. Not sure what that problem is, but he's back to the pit area. And let's go trackside with Army Armstrong.
Fred, a 4.15. Everybody seems to be having a problem putting the horsepower to the track.
I hooked about half track real good, but I shucked everything this time. I don't know what I broke yet, but I've got no drive of any kind, front or rear.
So that was a very expensive run for you.
I did strain my motor up about past $9 grand. I don't know what's broke underneath.
Well, when we talk about the Money Pit, we talk about a vehicle that's going to cost some money this afternoon.
Well, nobody said it was going to be a pretty sport. They just said it was going to be a fast sport.
Silent Rage. Here is Scott Lane.
Scott runs a unique vehicle just because of the type of horsepower it is. It's a Chrysler-powered vehicle. Now, he goes up against another, what I'm going to call a unique vehicle. That's a supercharged Ford-powered vehicle.
23 Alter T, No Surrender. Matt Hospenthal. Silent Rage in near lane, No Surrender in the far lane. Once again, against the clock, not against each other.
You know, I find it kind of unique. We've got two strange engine combinations, the supercharged Ford in the far lane and the Chrysler product in the near lane. Chrysler wins the battle, but Ford may have won the war. I think the Ford went quicker.
3:54, neither one very quick. It's a very slow tractor this afternoon to a 4:06. But once again, after the paddle tire competition earlier in the day, it is a very slow course.
Well, and the reason it is, it's ruddy. You can see in the right lane, these guys are really having to drive these vehicles through.
Well, right now, your best time is still a 3:17. As we take a look at the legal speed, here's a real veteran of this sport, the 1991 NMRO National Champion, legal speed with Glenn Seabolt.
Boy, if you follow mud racing from the south, this guy is a full key-roll. He's going up against a unique vehicle that normally runs just up north, Gary. Why don't you tell us about this beautiful little Jeep coming out?
Here's a pretty lady, Karen Rask, out of Minnesota, is driving the touch-and-go Jeep.
Well, Gary, earlier in the day in the paddle tire class, Seabolt in the lane closest to us with that supercharged Chevrolet engine really took a wild ride. We were questioning whether or not he was going to stay with the legal speed or not. Check it out.
Oh, where was that vapor, that smoke coming from that obscured his view?
I don't think it obscured his view. I think you shut your eyes when you drive these things anyway, Gary.
You better not be shutting your eyes.
Well, it's unique. Far lane, the nitrous-powered vehicle. The closer lane is the supercharged engine. Now, it looks like the supercharged engine horsepower is working better for this particular pit. She leads quick. Oh, she's in trouble.
She's off the track. She'll be disqualified.
Meanwhile, Seabolt didn't even get that far. That was just
Seabolt stops in his lane. He broke. The young lady was disqualified. Karen Rask in touch and go was out of her lane, so she was disqualified. And the former national champion broke down and never concluded his run.
Well, some days are diamonds, some days are stones, Gary.
We have more coming up from Davenport, Iowa.
On TNN.
Welcome back to Trucks and Tractor Power as we take a look at the village of East Davenport, a quaint part of town with lots of buildings from the 1800s down near the Mississippi River. And back to the Mississippi mud, and here's a look at one of the best in the business, Ron Pense in Tater, the Chevy Love truck out of Frederickstown, Missouri.
Ron Pense makes a tremendous amount of horsepower, but I don't believe that's where his secret is. He pulls up in the other lane against Bob Monk with the mud stud. Pense has figured out something with the drivetrain. It's something between the engines and the rear tires. It's got to be in the transmission. Meanwhile, the mud stud, he's not going to roll over for anybody. This could be one of the quickest races of the day. They're trying to go quicker in a 317.
Ron Pense, what's he turn? Pense has some trouble getting it stopped. Slides to a stop, almost making cut. 311, he does it. 311 for Ron Pense and Tater. The fans seem to enjoy that, but he had some difficulty in the shutdown area. Almost made contact with the mud stud, and there's a 357 for the mud stud.
Well, it went from a 317 to a 311. We talk about gambling. Those are lucky numbers, aren't they, Gary Lee?
Well, Bob Monk was somewhat concerned right here that he was going to get nailed broadside by Ron Pense, but Pense gets her slowed down, and right now he climbs to the top of the leaderboard with a 311. A man with very little to say, but let's see what he has to say this time.
Well, Ron Pense, everybody's complaining about how rough the track is. You go a 311 from the middle of the field to be our new leader. How did you do it, or what did you do different than everybody else?
I just geared up. It's extremely slick over there. You don't need a lot of horsepower over there. I geared it up. Try to make it get a hold and go straight.
Notice the Kirky seat there very high in the back for protection when they nail that throttle, and it kicks the head back. There's a look at Gene Johnson in the Terminator. He'll be up close to that concrete wall against Tom Meents in Shake Me. This should be a good shootout right here.
This is the same thing that people see when they go and sit at Cape Kennedy or Cape Canaveral, Florida. They're going to see two rockets right now.
This is the launch pad.
This is it, babe. Grab your honey and hold on tight. The bad boys are getting out tonight, and it's time.
They're shooting for a 311, just turned in by Ron Pense and Tater. Tom Meents with a good run. Let's check the time. First the time for Johnson. And now the time for Meents, not quite good enough, 3:18. So that'll be third on the leaderboard. Let's take a look again.
Watch the bounce that takes place. He gets a lot of chassis. Load, unload, right there. See, Gary, that's hurting.
So Tom Meents goes third on the leaderboard, and he's trackside with Army.
Gary, what we're looking at right now is the Shake Me bottom four-link bar on the suspension. Now, the only way you can bend one of these bars is by getting a tremendous amount of bite. And the big story all day long today is everybody saying there's no bite to be had out there. Tell me the story. Horsepower, wheel speed, and you're braking pieces, and nobody else can get power to the stick.
I don't know, Army. Just right off the get-go, I think I hooked up pretty hard on that hard starting line that went right to the right, and I backpedaled it and tried to baby it through best I could. But I could tell something wasn't right in the rear end.
Yeah, there's another look at the damaged four-link bar in the rear suspension. There's a look at Top Gun. Coming up next, that's Dan Brown in his Power Pro Jeep with the big 460 cubic inch Ford power plant. And he will pull up against Ken Crum in the Showtime rear engine dragster with the big 477 Rodeck power plant.
Well, earlier in the day, both of these drivers had an opportunity to run in the cut tire division. Keep an eye on the right lane, Gary. The lane to your right, you will see a rocket ride. Hook 'em, horn.
Yeah, the rocket kind of fizzled right there.
Yeah, but it fizzled going away from the wall. If you're going to point in a direction, that's the way to go, I guess.
Yeah, all these drivers are very concerned about that wall that parallels that far lane, which is where Top Gun is right now. Showtime in the near lane.
Watch for Showtime to really try to lean on it. Not going to work for him.
It didn't work that time. No, it didn't. He has some problems coming off the launch pad, as we call it. Top Gun at 398 for that white Jeep and a 420 for the Showtime of Ken Crum.
I believe the Showtime is in two-wheel drive only. You watch it. I don't think the front wheels, no, they're not. Front wheels did not pull at all. Meanwhile, the Jeep lays down a good run. I think the track is just not able to hold.
Well, the track
kind
is
of
not there. The
horsepower.
track is going away. We saw the track in terrible condition after the paddle tire competition. As the fans look on, we'll take a look at the current standings. Ron Pense on top the leaderboard with Tater at 311. Dave Ryan at 317 in Intrepid. And Tom Meents is now third with Shake Me at 318. A whole lot more action coming your way. It's a beautiful day at the Jamboree here in Davenport, Iowa. We're coming back with more on Trucks and Tractor Power.
In the fast lane, it's a 5-second adrenaline rush at 300 miles per hour. A roller coaster of emotions, the intense highs, the devastating lows. For the victor, the battle is worth all costs. The NHRA circuit with the fast lane keeps getting faster. And TNN Motorsports keeps getting stronger. Live from Memphis, NHRA Today, followed by the final rounds of the Goodies Mid-South Nationals. Today, 6 p.m. Eastern, only on TNN Motorsports.
Welcome back to Davenport, Iowa, where Ford Trucks present the Penda 4-Wheel and Off-Road Jamboree Quad Cities Nationals, a part of the B.F. Goodrich Performance Series. These jamborees offer a host of activities for the truck lover as well as the entire family. And to find out when a jamboree is coming to your area, call Wright, the Special Events Promotion Company. Well, back inside the competition area at the Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds, we opened the show talking about supercharged engines. And earlier, Army was down in the pit area to take a closer look at the safety aspects.
Gary, every now and then we keep talking about the blower motors of the supercharged motors, and I'm going to try to explain something to you that they're required to have that other people are not required to have, and that's a blower restraint system, kind of like a seat belt in the car that restrains you and I in case of an accident. The whole purpose behind a blower restraint system is to keep the blower in place in case you have an explosion. Now, real quick, I'm going to explain it to you. This is the blower area. The whole idea behind the blower is to do nothing more than to force air into the engine, okay? The fuel comes from the top. It's forced through the blower. It makes a whole lot of horsepower in the engine when it's ignited. But if something should go wrong, the blower case here will have a tendency to explode. That's the whole reason behind having these straps here. Just like a seatbelt in the car, they keep the blower in the right position. Back to you, Gary.
And Army right now, the guy in the right position is Ron Pense. He's setting #1 with one more race to go. We are down now to our final competitors. Mike Garman in chemical reaction, the near lane, the 27 Roadster with the big 510 cubic inch Cologne Chevy power plant. And he goes up against Tom Martin, the Super Trooper, the 32 Chevy Coupe with the big 540 Keith Black engine, a 4-time national indoor champion, but he is certainly coming into his own in outdoor competition. Earlier today, we had the paddle tire competition, and here's a look back at the Super Troopers run against Tom Meents and Shake Me.
These are two of the baddest in the sport lining up against each other. Look what happened. Neither one would blink. They flat went after each other, and Martin came out on top. But what he's trying to do is to prove to these guys these 4 world championships indoors were not a fluke. He is for real, and we're going to find out right now just how hard he wants to run, because he's about 36 inches away from a concrete wall that has been spooking everybody all day long.
Boy, he brakes right at the start. He spun both front and rear wheels, and he comes to a halt. There's a 426, and that's not going to be fast enough, which means that Ron Pense will endure the competition and will win. But there's a look at the Super Trooper. Martin sits idly behind the cockpit, unstrapping the gloves. He broke something.
What happened on the starting line? The starting line is real hard. That's where he lost it.
Final standings, Ron Pense and Tater at 311. Dave Ryan and Intrepid at 317, and Tom Meents finishes third, a 318 in Shake Me. So once again, we'll go down trackside and have a chance to visit with our winner, Ron Pense, the driver of Tater.
Well, Gary, we're in an area a lot of people don't get a chance to see. We're standing with the winner, but no matter whether you win or lose, you got to get in line to get the vehicle clean. Ron, congratulations on a good win. Track conditions were really spooky out there today, they seem to be.
Yeah, it was real slick, and cars would go any way they wanted to sometimes.
Well, you and your crew have worked awfully hard. You've come up with something, and everybody in the pit area is scratching their head. They can't figure out what it is, but whatever it is, congratulations to you on a great win today.
Thank you very much.
And the fans start to head for the exits here at the Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds in Davenport. And the Super Trooper is headed for the shower. Down in Victory Lane, it looks like a reception line of congratulations, and we offer ours to Ron Pense. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. We'll see you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power. Now here's news of an exciting home video release from Diamond P Sports.
Once again, the win.